The Patrick Reed situation that, that a lot of folks were talking about, and people accusing him of cheating and trying to change his life. What are your thoughts on that? Was he cheating?
Yeah. I think, yeah. I don't know what he was doing, playing, building sandcastles in the sand.
Golf has always told the world it is different. In football, there are referees. In tennis, there are line judges. In basketball, officials patrol the court with whistles around their necks. But in golf, you are the official. You call your own penalties. You report your own mistakes. You walk up to the scorer's table at the end of every round, you pick up a pen, and you sign your name to a number that you are swearing is the truth. That is the entire foundation this sport was built on. Trust. Self-policing. The honor code that separates golf from everything else. It is called the gentleman's game for a reason. For most of the sport's history, that system worked. Players had too much pride to break it, too much respect for the game to cheat. The reputation of the sport was considered more important than any one result, any one paycheck, any one trophy. That was the deal. But someone here violated that deal in the most visible and documented way the game has ever seen. And when PGA legends were asked to name him, the answers were not quiet and they were not kind. He is, according to analysts and fellow competitors alike, the biggest cheater this sport has produced in the modern era. If you are already feeling where this is going, hit the hype button on this video and hype it up, because this story gets far messier before it gets anywhere close to better. The reason this conversation is possible today is that golf has changed in ways the old guard never anticipated. The cameras changed everything. In the era of Seve Ballesteros and Raymond Floyd, what happened on the course often stayed on the course. A player's word was final. There was no slow motion replay, no viewer phone line, no global audience watching frame by frame. That era is finished. Today, high-definition cameras cover every hole. Viewers call in violations from their sofas, and the permanent digital record means nothing disappears. When a player's version of events does not match what the footage shows, the footage wins every time. This is the story of 6 men whose names became permanently tied to controversy, suspicion, and the scrutiny that golf's honor code was never designed to handle. We count them down from number 6 to number 1. By the time we reach the top, the case has been so thoroughly documented, it practically argues itself. Number 6. Dustin Johnson. We start with a man who is almost certainly not a cheater. Dustin Johnson is on this list not because of what he did, but because of what his story teaches us about everything that follows. The year was 2010, the PGA Championship at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin. Johnson was playing the round of his life, leading. Final round, 1 shot clear of the field. Everything was in front of him. On the 18th hole, he drove into a sandy area about 40 yards off the fairway. The place looked like a disaster zone. Thousands of gallery members had walked through it all week. Beer cans littered the ground. The bare dirt and sand remaining looked nothing like a traditional bunker. It looked like waste ground. To Johnson, to his playing partner Nick Watney, to anyone watching, it was clearly just a rough patch created by the crowd. Johnson grounded his club twice before playing the shot. In a waste area, grounding a club is completely legal, but every designated sandy area on that course had been declared a bunker under a local rule. That rule was printed on a single piece of paper inside every locker in the clubhouse. Johnson admitted he never once thought he was in a bunker. Watney confirmed there was no intent to gain any advantage. But a television viewer spotted the breach and phoned it in. Johnson was assessed a 2-stroke penalty. He finished tied for 5th instead of lifting the trophy. David Faraday from CBS called it one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in major history. Course owner Herb Kohler had no sympathy. He said it was the rules of golf, plain and simple. Johnson admitted he probably should have studied the rule sheet a little harder. The reason Johnson is here is simple. He is the baseline. What a genuine accidental rules breach looks like. No pattern behind it, no denial that insults your intelligence, no coordinated online response. Just a man who did not know a rule and paid a devastating price. Keep that image in your mind, because every name that follows is a fundamentally different kind of story. Number 5. Raymond Floyd. Raymond Floyd came from a different world of golf. He was a money game player from the 1960s, when the sharpest golfers in America competed not for trophies, but for cash on the spot. Head-to-head matches with heavy side bets, where every mental edge and competitive trick was considered part of the game. Floyd drove to those matches in a white Cadillac. He had an intimidating presence that made younger players reconsider their decisions before they finished taking the club back. Lee Trevino experienced that firsthand. Long before Trevino became one of the most beloved figures in the history of the game, he played Floyd as a bag boy out of El Paso, Texas. That match is remembered as a legendary duel, with Floyd narrowly defeating the scruffy young caddy who would one day become a Hall of Famer. But Trevino would not stay complimentary about Floyd forever. He became one of the most prominent voices accusing Floyd of a habit that had no place in professional competition. Trevino said Floyd improved his lie, not once, repeatedly. Using his status as one of the best players in the world, Floyd allegedly manipulated the grass around his ball, or took questionable drops when officials were not positioned to challenge him. Younger players did not push back. His reputation alone functioned as protection. This reflected a broader culture of that era. Top-tier players operated with territorial dominance on the course. Their word was rarely questioned, because questioning it came with consequences. What Floyd appeared to carry from the hustle circuit into the professional tour was the winning is everything mentality of the gambling game. In the 1960s, that had a certain rough charm. Under today's standards, it looks considerably darker. Number 4. Seve Ballesteros. Seve Ballesteros was the greatest escapologist professional golf has ever produced. He could manufacture birdies from places where other players could not make par. He played from car parks, from pine straw, from deep rough that would have broken the spirit of most professionals. His creativity and his absolute refusal to be beaten made him the most electrifying player of his generation and the heartbeat of European golf for 2 decades. But his opponents had a different word for some of what he brought to competition: gamesmanship. The accusations built across years, improving his lie in thick rough before total television coverage made every blade of grass visible. His caddies were said to be suspiciously talented at finding his ball in positions that suited him a little too conveniently. Tactical coughing at the wrong moment, coins rattling in pockets during a rival's backswing. Actions impossible to prove in isolation, but that accumulated into a pattern his rivals could not forget. The defining chapter of this reputation is the 1991 Ryder Cup, known forever as the War on the Shore. Paul Azinger and Chip Beck were Ballesteros' opponents in the foursomes. During the match, Ballesteros noticed that the American pair had switched the compression of their ball between holes, a technical breach of the one-ball rule. He called it out immediately. Azinger insisted it was an honest mistake. No formal penalty was applied, but the confrontation left damage that spread far beyond a rule-book technicality. Ballesteros later delivered one of the most pointed lines in Ryder Cup history. He said the American team was made up of 11 nice guys and Paul Azinger. Azinger responded in kind. He called Ballesteros the king of gamesmanship and accused him of coughing deliberately during Beck's backswing to rattle the Americans. Players like Nick Faldo and Mark Calcavecchia described someone arrogant by the standards of the gentlemanly game, a competitor who did not just play the course, but occupied the entire psychological space around him and dared anyone to challenge him. Number 3. Tiger Woods. No athlete in the history of professional golf has been placed under a more powerful microscope than Tiger Woods. Every swing documented, every reaction studied, every decision replayed in slow motion. That level of scrutiny made what happened at the 2013 Masters impossible to contain once it began. On the 15th hole, Woods played a shot that struck the flagstick and bounced into the water. Under Rule 26-1, he was required to drop a ball as near as possible to the original spot. But in a post-round television interview, Woods admitted he had dropped the ball 2 yards further back. He said it was deliberate. He wanted a different yardage to avoid hitting the flagstick again. That admission opened a debate that split the golfing world. Brandel Chambly argued the breach was flagrant and obvious. He said if Woods understood the rule, he was obligated to report the violation and withdraw from the tournament. Nick Faldo said initially the incident would leave a mark on both his career and his legacy. Augusta National used Rule 33-7, a change introduced in 2011 to issue a 2-stroke penalty rather than disqualification. The problem was that Rule 33-7 was designed for players who break a rule unknowingly. Woods had not unknowingly broken it. He had publicly described a deliberate yardage adjustment in a broadcast interview millions watched. Graham McDowell said what many were already thinking. Because it was Tiger, the conversation immediately shifted toward television ratings and the commercial interests of the tournament. Critics called it ratings over integrity. Augusta National had protected their most famous asset at the cost of clean enforcement. The controversy settled into Masters lore and never fully left. Number 2. Vijay Singh. Everything discussed so far involves judgment calls. physical actions on the course, moments where the rules carry ambiguity or intent is difficult to establish. Vijay Singh's primary infraction was none of those things. His was documented on paper. At the 1985 Indonesian Open in Jakarta, Singh was 22 years old and fighting to survive as a professional golfer. The accusation against him was not about an unusual swing or a debatable camera angle. It was about a number on a scorecard. Officials with the Indonesian Golf Association concluded that Singh had altered his scorecard after completing his round. The change was one stroke lower than the actual score he had shot. One stroke that was the difference between making the cut and going home early. The officials determined the scorecard had been improved between the moment Singh finished his final hole and the moment he signed it. He was disqualified immediately. The Southeast Asian Golf Federation handed down an indefinite suspension. Around the same period, Singh was also barred from the Australian PGA for separate financial conduct issues involving unpaid loans. He was locked out from multiple circuits simultaneously. Singh's explanation has remained consistent across decades. He has always maintained it was a misunderstanding involving the amateur marker who was keeping his score, a miscommunication. But Sports Illustrated journalist John Garrity investigated the incident years later and interviewed officials and competitors who had been there. Canadian professional Jim Rutledge stated uncategorically that the alteration was intentional. Not a mistake, not confusion, intentional. Singh served his time. He spent 2 years in Borneo working as a club professional at a remote resort, grinding through isolation that he later said rebuilt his entire approach to the game. When he returned to competition, he was a transformed player. He reached world number 1, won 3 major championships, and built a Hall of Fame career. But the Jakarta story never left him. A 1996 Sports Illustrated profile brought it back up in detail. Singh said the story took his past out of context. In golf, altering a scorecard sits at the very top of the list of violations. It is not a gray area. It is not gamesmanship. It is fraud against every other player in the field. Singh's talent was extraordinary and completely genuine, but the asterisk that followed him was equally real. Number 1, Patrick Reed. Here is where the gray areas end completely. Patrick Reed is, in the judgment of his peers, his analysts, in the permanent video record, the modern villain archetype of professional golf. That is not an emotional conclusion. It is a documented one. Start with the most recent flashpoint because it is the most revealing about character. The 2021 Farmers Insurance Open at Torrey Pines, 3rd round, 10th hole. Reed hit a shot into the rough and was told by a volunteer that the ball had not bounced. He treated the ball as embedded and lifted it before a rules official arrived. Brandel Chambly stated that action violated the unwritten code of the game. PGA Tour officials reviewed the situation and cleared Reed, describing his conduct as textbook based on the information provided to him. Then, the situation took a strange turn. A social media account calling itself Golf Facts appeared and began posting detailed defenses of Reed's actions. Fans noticed the account was publishing these defenses minutes before Reed's official account posted nearly identical language. Someone connected to Reed appeared to be running a separate account to shape public perception before Reed had officially responded. The perception of a coordinated burner account added a layer of calculated dishonesty that lingered long after the original rules question had been resolved. But that was not the beginning of this story. The beginning was 2019, the Hero World Challenge in the Bahamas. During the 3rd round, high-definition cameras captured Reed in a waste bunker doing something that required no interpretation. He brushed sand away from behind his ball, not once, twice. Both times during his backswing. Both times a direct and clear improvement of his lie. He was assessed a 2-stroke penalty. His explanation was that a bad camera angle had misrepresented what occurred and that he had not intentionally improved the lie. Brandel Chambly responded with language that golf media quoted for months. He called the video repugnant to anybody in the world of golf. He said defending what Reed had done was defending cheating and defending breaking the rules. He compared Reed to Richard Nixon and the famous declaration that he was not a crook. The parallel was about a man whose public statements and the objective evidence existed in completely separate realities. Cameron Smith did not reach for metaphors. He used the word cheating directly and without qualification. Reed's response was to say the whole situation was turning personal. A player with documented video evidence stacked against him reframed the criticism as a personal attack, rather than an accurate description of what the footage showed. The pattern goes further back than 2019. At the 2018 Ryder Cup, friction inside the team room was reported openly. The sentiment among teammates that Reed had been stabbing people in the back circulated in a way that could not be contained. Chambly described Reed's ego as being as big as Jupiter. His core observation was that Reed's refusal to show any contrition after the Hero World Challenge placed teammates in an impossible position. They could either publicly defend a player caught on camera improving his lie, or distance themselves from him. That forced choice corroded team trust in ways that no two-stroke penalty could address. The biggest cheater label in professional golf is not assigned lightly. This sport carries a long memory and a very short tolerance for dishonesty. Across all 6 names on this countdown, what separates Reed at the very top is not one single incident. It is the accumulation, the pattern running from 2018 through 2019 through 2021, the denials that do not survive contact with the video, the social media operation built to manage a narrative, the teammates who stopped standing behind him, the analysts who ran out of charitable explanations and said so publicly. Golf remains a sport that demands integrity from the inside out. Players still call penalties on themselves. The rules are tightened and updated continuously. The surveillance effect has ended the era of the gentleman's agreement and replaced it with something more honest, even if considerably more brutal. That is genuinely a good thing. If you want more breakdowns like this one, hit subscribe and drop a comment below with the name you think belongs on this list that we did not reach today. The stories are out there, and some of them are even harder to explain away than what you just heard.